It is so nice to see a room full of people and students with trophies in their hands. I love seeing that. We have such excellent students in our district. At this particular time, we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a volunteer to help us begin? Come forward, please. We'll follow right in once you start us off.
Oh, right here. Okay. Come on, I stand up. Oh God. All right. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am waiting for our other board members to return so that we can start our nominations and elections for the school board. And I apologize for this delay. Anybody have an instrument? Can you play our elevator music while we wait? Here comes one more.
I think you could probably start with who you have present.
We've already done the pledge. We're just waiting for the nomination to start. And so we have to have a full seat, I think. Here comes one more. And if you could hurry to your seats, please. We need to open the floor for nominations. Please get to your seats. So at this particular time, nominations are open for president of the school board. Do I have any nominations? Ms. Schmidt,
I would like to nominate Keith Tatum for president of the board.
and do I have a second for that? Dr. Bonebreak? Do we have any other nominations to open up?
I'd like to nominate Dr. Schumacher for vice president.
We are just doing
Oh, we're
president
still
right
doing
now.
Sorry.
So no other nominations on the floor? So it is time for a vote.
The vote is open. Thank you. All votes are in and the motion carries.
Thank you, colleagues. I appreciate your support. I'm very humbled, and I'm going to ask for your patience and guidance as I kind of plow through these new waters. But I'm confident that with your support, we'll be just fine. Okay, so Ms. Lister, the next item on our agenda then is the adoption.
No,
Nope.
nominations for vice president.
Well, nominations for vice president.
Okay, I did this last year. So no surprise, I would like to nominate Dr. Schumacher for vice president of the USD.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Seconded by Dr. Bonebreak. Any further discussion? Okay. You've heard the motion.
Vote is
If
open.
good, thank you.
All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Schumacher. Okay,
We don't move.
so it appears that now we are ready for the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
It's too hard.
Does someone want to pass Dr. Schumacher the motions?
Mrs. Schmidt,
I would like to make a motion in regards to the agenda that we move the business by consent to the last item. So it would take place after the executive session, which is 24.1 currently.
so just to be clear, that would mean that the board would come back to the boardroom to finish up the last agenda of the evening before we adjourn. Just making sure everybody understands that's what that would mean. Okay. Okay,
I move that we accept that suggestion on the agenda.
the modification of the agenda.
Second it.
Do we have a second? Melanie Stewart Campbell, thank you. Okay,
Any reason?
yes,
for-
sir.
For just the change of regular process?
Mrs. Schmidt made the motion.
To add it to the end, we just want to have some conversation about some of the things that are in there that fall under the guise of personnel before we make that motion to accept.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and go to a vote.
And then who seconded it was Mrs. Bowley? No, it was Mrs. Bowley.
Correct.
The vote is open. Dr. Bonebrake, you want to vote by hand? Okay. All votes are in and the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. So we'll move that item to the end of our agenda as we just decided and voted on. So that takes us to school highlights.
Yes, it does. This is our favorite part of or certainly my favorite part of the board meeting. The meeting itself, yeah, that's okay. But the acknowledgements of our young people, that is the best part. So this evening, we are here to acknowledge Mr. Barry Evans and the Topeka Charger Band. Before I say much else, I'm going to turn it over to our outstanding fine arts supervisor to share what Mr. Evans has done most recently. And Mr. Evans, we made a little video about you and your entire team. Can we start that video just to kick this off? Then I'll turn it over to Mr. Reynolds.
We have taken 10 bowl trips over my career here at Topeka West. We've done the Alamo Bowl 4 times. We've done the Peach Bowl twice. We've done the Sugar Bowl, the Liberty Bowl, the Outback Bowl, and the Gator Bowl. I just want these kids to have that opportunity to see something more than just competitions. This lets us get out, be more visible to just the national scene, and it's just an opportunity that I didn't want to let them pass up.
Multiple schools from multiple states go down to San Antonio for the marching competition. Whoever wins gets to play pregame at the Alamo Bowl. And yeah, it was very cool. There's 60,000 people watching you, and it's a lot.
The show was called Behind the Smile, and I would say it was more loosely based on the Joker, and it talks really about how Arthur Fleck was our character, goes from being a normal man, and then he did that transition into becoming the Joker. And our music really follows that transition from the first movement, where our music's not so intense and it's not so like driven as crazy, where as the show goes on, at the end of the show, you know,
there's a lot more intense music, or a lot more dramatic that signifies his complete transformation into the Joker.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of pressure. We actually had to perform in front of the crowd, the football players, the cheerleaders, the other bands. My biggest standout moment would be like standing on my ladder and half the football players being as tall as my ladder.
I would like to thank the Topeka West community, USD 501, the city of Topeka. One of the reasons why we're so good is our band parents and our students work very, very hard. We raised $150,000 for this trip. They just really are supportive, and you can't be a good quality program if you don't have that support network. So we want to thank everybody in USD 501 for all their support.
Mr. Reynolds, would you like to say a few words before Mr. Evans comes?
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, the board. I will say that one of the things you didn't hear Mr. Evans talk about was himself in that video. But we also want to recognize Mr. Evans for all the work and leadership that he provides. The group of students that you see tonight are his leadership. And without these students, without his leadership, they wouldn't be able to do what they did. It's pretty amazing to be selected as the one band that gets to do pregame for the entire Alamo Bowl. And so, Mr. Evans, along with you and your students, we're very happy for the things that you do.
Let's give him a round of applause. Questions? Any comments you'd like to make, Mr. Evans, and board members, questions you might have of Mr. Evans and his team?
Well, I first would like to bring up my students and have them stand up here and show you a little bit of the hardware we brought home. Would you, John, would you please just go down there by the Kansas flag and just start lining up? I can prove it right there. Oh, yeah, okay, right here, John. John, come over here. Over here. Just line up that way. It sure is. Wow.
They're not all the same thing.
Yeah. Second row. Start second row. So, yeah. Whoever has the Bucky shirt has to go in the front row. So what you see are trophies that we earned from two different things. One being the marching festival, where we marched our Behind the Smile show. And we won first place with that. It included outstanding marching, music, general effect, outstanding color guard, outstanding percussion, and outstanding drum majors. So then we took also in the parade competition, we took outstanding drum major, drum line, percussion, outstanding marching, outstanding music, and outstanding general effect, which in both of those being together, we earned the sweepstakes trophy, which was the overall best band at the entire competition. Which is actually, this is the third competition bowl game we've gotten that outstanding trophy award. These kids work their tails off. They are absolutely dedicated. We come to high school at 7 a.m. every morning, all through marching season. And then we spent out at least once or twice a week from the end of October through the 1st of December, right before winter break. We were outside when it was 20, 25 degrees outside practicing. So when we went down to Texas, we would still look good. That's a little scary not having that much rehearsal, but these kids are absolutely amazing. We did raise $150,000. We have 96 kids in the band. 95 of them went, and the one person that did not go said early on he did not want to go. Their family had a trip planned already. So we took 100% of the kids that could go went. And that is why we were able to perform at the highest level that we could. There is no way this would be possible without them. There's no way we could do this without our parents, and no way we could do this without my assistant and his wife, Mr. Kevin and Stacy Harry, if they'd please stand. Kevin Harry has been my assistant for 30 years at Topeka West. We are the longest running band director and assistant duo in the state. And then our boss of both of us is his wife. She's our color guard director. She volunteers all of her time to be our color guard director. She goes and runs our camps. She comes and has rehearsals 2 nights a week, all on her own time. She volunteers all of that time to do that. And then takes a week of her work off so that she can run our color guard camp during the summer. So she gives more than any of us to this program and not paid a cent for it. So we appreciate everything that Stacy does. Their daughter, yeah, please give her a round of applause. Their daughter, who also is a teacher here in USD 501, Crystal Markham, also volunteers all of her time to help out her mom with our color guard. And so Crystal and her wife, her mom and dad was able to go on the trip with us. We took 95 kids and about 50 adults. Some of the adults were not part of the band proper. They were just parents that wanted to go along and watch. But we did take 45 chaperones, and including our principal and his wife and son. Excuse me, Mr. Buckendorf went with us and his wife and son went with us. And it was just awesome to have all of them there supporting the band. They represented not just Topeka West and the city of Topeka, but the state of Kansas with the utmost professionalism and just were classy act bunch of students. And I could not be prouder. They deserve all the recognition they get.
Yes, they do.
Questions?
Questions from any of the board members? Dr. Bonebreak. Microphone, Dr. Bonebreak.
How did you build this culture? You could do what, 3 years in a row?
We've done a bowl trip the way I worked it out is I was in high school. When I was in high school, we went on a bowl trip twice. And I didn't want to do twice for every kid, but I wanted every student to have the opportunity to take one bowl trip. We started my very second year of teaching at Topeka West in 1995, and a long time ago. And every fourth year, so when freshmen were seniors, they would go again. And so we did that up until COVID. We were supposed to go the COVID year, and so we didn't get to go. And last year's senior class is the only class I've had in my 31 years of teaching that did not get to take a bowl trip. And that's unfortunate. But this class got to go. And so the last three bowl trips that we have taken in 2015, 2018, and now this one, we have been the sweepstakes winning band.
That's unimaginable. I mean, I don't know how you.
It's a lot of work with
Great.
these kids. They don't let mediocrity be a thing. It's all about excellence and being better today than you were yesterday. Their best is all I ask of them.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Any other board member? Mrs. Bowley.
I have some faces in the back of the room. I'm assuming we have some proud parents here that you might like to introduce.
Yes, the Hendersons are here. Please stand, Hendersons. We have Mrs. Horsley. We have the Tidwells. We have Miss Munoz. We have the Klukes.
Look at that support.
We have Mr. Campreth. We have, let's see here, I'm forgetting names. Mr. Evans is bad. Oh, brain fart
Call your
city.
name out.
I wasn't expecting to introduce all my parents.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Huh?
Can you share?
Yeah, go ahead. And I forgot last names. We have
Yes, Robles.
Robles, that's right. And then Mrs. Westfall.
Here.
And then
Cook.
Mr. Cook. And is there any more? Is there any more?
Alvarado.
Yep. And then we have some more students back here. We have Drake, Lydia, Bryce, Yari, and Layla. I think that's everybody. And these are the students that were able to come tonight. And as I said, most of the people up here are my section leaders and leadership of the band.
We are so proud of what you have done. Maybe almost as proud as what your parents are feeling right now. And we want to thank them for all of their support. It takes all their support as well. So is there one or two students that can tell us like your experience there, what it meant to you?
Julian and Brendan.
The experience overall was incredible. Meeting all these different bands from different states and being able to perform in front of thousands of people, you know what I mean? It was just a lifetime experience that you'll never forget.
Yeah, I kind of have to go with what Julian said, but I can say it's a little bit different. Like I know for the other times that people have gone on trips, they've always had seniors who have done it before and they kind of understand what's going to happen. Well, we didn't have that. So a lot of everybody here are seniors that weren't considered section leaders. We had to kind of step up, and it was kind of nice getting to see everybody become more of a family than we already were. I mean, we spent a lot of time outside of just the trip becoming family. So I think that this trip was a really big deal for us, getting to spend time together and just being friends and getting to do what most people will never get to do in their entire lives.
I was able to see your program, your show, because it is a show. It's a beautiful show a couple of times out at Hummer. And it was just amazing. And the way you incorporated your award-winning theater department as well. And the theater piece of it is just wonderful. So you guys are amazing. And I'm hoping that you will take your music into your college experiences as well. Mr. Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
What a great, great legacy you're leaving for so many students. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. Any other board member? Ms. Stewart Campbell?
Well, like Miss Bully, I saw you perform a couple times at Hummer and was blown away. Like we wanted to leave early. I remember the last one, like you were the last to perform. We're like, oh, let's beat the crowd. I'm like, no, we are not leaving until we get to see the Chargers fan. So really great entertainment. And I would like, I know Mr. Evans is humble, but I was hoping you could share with us a little about your journey, how you got here and got us here.
This was my first job out of college. I was hired by the district because I was young and stupid, and cheap. But Topeka West had had 5 band directors in 5 years, and they wanted somebody that was willing to stay a while and build the program up. And I was able to get the job. And then Mr. Harry joined me my second year, and between the two of us and his wife, we've been able to take this program, and we constantly beg the kids, literally beg them to do their best. We just constantly, these kids will tell you, he says every day, are you better today than you were yesterday? And I wish I made that up. I stole it from Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder rebuilt his K-State football program using the same thing. And I tell him that story. I read the book and it just spoke to me. And so we work on every day. We come from so many different parts of life, especially in USD 501, having kids from all over the city coming here, some of which have never marched or played at the same time. And we're able to make them into this award-winning program. And it's a very big nod to the quality of kids that we have and how hard they work. It's totally them understanding. We are very fortunate that I have several people that volunteer to help us, but I couldn't do it without the students. These leaders, they have worked hard. They understand that they have to be older than what they are. They have to be bigger than just a student in high school. They have to be section leaders. They have to be mentors. They have to be parents. We do a mentoring program every year where they get band families and they have students that are their band kids. And we treat the freshmen as if they're our most important person in our band, because if the freshmen are not successful, we're not successful. And so we have every year, all the new members are drawn out of a hat for 2 mentors, a husband and wife, or 2 husbands, or 3 daughters, or whatever you want to, we just have couples and people that take those kids and they kind of just guide them through the year, and they give them presents and they help guide them through their freshman year so that when they are a part of the band, they feel like they're more important than just a freshman going, oh, I don't know anything. I couldn't do this without Mr. Harry. Mr. Harry, he's my best friend. He is my second arm. I mean, he and I have worked so well together. When we first started, he said, what would Barry do? And that's how we worked. He didn't want my job. He just wanted to be the best. I'm also very fortunate to have incredible administration with Mr. Buckendorf, Stan Wagstaff, for those of you that remember him back in the day, Mr. Dick. All of those administrators were no less important to me than anybody else because they supported me no matter what I did and what I tried. I'm just a little guy from Topeka, Kansas. I graduated from Washburn, went to KU. I've been at Topeka West my entire career. I will retire from there in a few years. 31 years is a long time, and I'm getting very tired. But I've got 5 or 6 more years in me. But I keep coming back to Topeka West because it's home. And I couldn't be prouder of what I've done there and what we've done at Topeka West and what these kids do. It's why I'm here. I did want to take a moment, since I have the opportunity. We are very fortunate. Not only are these kids amazing, we also have the #1 and #3 rated trumpet players in the state of Kansas. Julian, the man that spoke, and Matthias standing right beside him. Julian, would you raise your hand? Julian is first chair all-state band, and Matthias is third chair all-state. So they're the
All
first
right.
best trumpets in the state of Kansas. That's out of thousands of trumpet players. So we're very lucky to have these kids.
Yes, we are. Mrs. Schmidt.
So thank you all. Your passion is obviously creating a legacy. Continuity in these things is so important for kids.
Absolutely.
So what a blessing you have been to be there for so long, and we hope for many years more. My question is how do you choose your theme
The theme?
for these? I've always wondered that.
Well, we have taken, it's a lot of process. There are thousands of marching shows out there that we look at. I have three parameters that I look at. One, it has to be either a story or a really incredible idea. Two, it has to be classical music oriented. This year, our show had the Carmina Burana from Orff's Carmina. It was the O Fortuna from Carmina Burana by Carl Orff. And three, it has to be something that I think the kids will enjoy doing. And by those three things, Mr. Harry, Miss Harry, and I, and then Miss Markham all sit down and we go through thousands of shows. And when we finally find one we like, we kind of bring it to each of us and we figure out if we can do it. And then we figure out, do we like it? Do we have the people to do it? You know, and it's a long process. We actually are in that process right now, looking for next year's show. We've narrowed it down to one or two. The kids don't know it yet, so we keep it as a secret, and then we'll reveal it on a video at one point in time, at the end of this year, sometime in the next couple months. But it's a long process, and then I write all the drill for it, all the movement that you see on the field. I do that. Most of the time, it's $5,000 to have somebody do that. I take care of that myself. We are very fortunate. All of our drum line is run by Mr. Harry. He is the one that works all the drums out, works all of that stuff with the mallets on the sideline. He gets all that taken care of. And then Mrs. Harry and Mrs. Markham write all of the color guard routine and how that works. And then they practice twice a week during the marching season. And then our section leaders, they give us input and the kids help us out. And it's a long process, but we all work together to make it happen.
Clearly, it wouldn't come together as smoothly as it has if you guys hadn't figured out a system of making this work. So yeah, kudos.
Thank you.
Any other board members? Okay. Thank you so much. Congratulations. This is a big deal. I hope you're all very proud, students and faculty and parents. This is an amazing accomplishment.
And because they are so tall, you can't see me, but I am back here. I will say two things. One, you saw the certificate. Board members, since we're going to take a photo with them while they're already standing there, I'm just going to have them step up 2 or 3 steps or scoot up a little bit. And then board members, you'll just line in behind them and on the side of them for your photo. As you're coming for the photo, what Mr. Evans said, turn around. So you do what he says. All right. And then board members, then you can come on behind them then in that case on that back end. And the certificate to Mr. Evans, certainly, Mr. and Miss Harry, we will make sure to print yours tomorrow to deliver to you. It's very clear that you are as instrumental. And then, of course, the Topeka West Charger Band. Okay, we may have to squeeze in a little bit or either kneel down on the front row.
I think we'll have to do 3 rows because there's a lot of you guys. Perfect.
All right. Got everybody in? All right.
Okay, everyone, look right here. 3, 2. Perfect.
I'm sorry, Mr. Buckingham, would you like to step in the picture for my colleague? Oh, for the principal.
Lay down in front.
Ready?
Okay, on 3.
I want to thank you all for the.
All right, as we get back started, we do want to share that one of the things that wasn't shared as Mr. Evans was talking, and we get ready to go to the next highlight, is that one of the things he incorporates, his wife is Miss Evans that oversees family service and guidance, who's one of our largest partners. So during these band performances, they incorporate mental health stations and they have students running those, giving out information, suicide prevention. It's pretty remarkable. Again, we congratulate them and we thank them. We also know that Reverend Scott was here. He's the NAACP president, but actually he was here for his grandchild. I didn't realize that he was in the back for his, as one of the parents. All right, it is School Board Appreciation Month. We appreciate you all. You have a little gift there, and you also have some cards from students, but we're going to start. I believe we have a video as well that students created and schools created for you at the end of December, right before they went on break.
Hello. So this month we are celebrating School Board Recognition Month. We are so thankful for the incredible school board members that we have. So join us in looking at the various celebrations and the gratitude messages from schools across Topeka Public Schools. And for our school board members, thank you so much for all that you do to engage, prepare, and inspire students and staff for a lifetime of learning.
Hello, it's Mike here, principal at Jardine Middle School. Just want to thank our Topeka Public School Board for a job well done. We appreciate all your hard work for our school community. Happy School Board Fun.
Thank you for supporting the students. Thank you for supporting the staff. Shout out to my dad, Dr. Schumacher. Thank you for supporting me. We thank you for all of your hard work and dedication to the students and staff of our community.
Well, I'd like to thank the board for the 24 years they give me here in Topeka Public Schools. Thank you so much, Board of Education.
And the support that the school board has shown Hope Street Academy over the years is a large part of why we have been so successful here. And so I just want to take a minute to thank all the school board members. Thank you so much. Without your support, this would not be able to happen.
The importance of having an involved school board, I think, is that you need members that are part of the board that are active in schools and are out there seeing the things that are happening in classrooms day to day, really frontline observing the issues that teachers deal with, that administrators deal with, and so they can help make informed and appropriate decisions to support all of the different aspects of school that we have happen, and ultimately help more students and teachers and administrators be successful in what they're doing within school.
Hello, Topeka Public Schools Board of Education. I am Principal Pierce here at Woodson Elementary, and we are so thankful for all that you do for our school district. Thank you, TPS School Board. Topeka Public Schools School Board, this is Mrs. Palmer in Jardine Elementary, and we just wanted to say for School Board Appreciation Month from Jardine Elementary. Thank you, TPS Board! Thank you!
Oh, Dr. Schumacher, you missed your child that gave you a shout out.
I've seen it like 30 times. We're at my parents' house and we had to pull it up and show everything. So don't worry, I know it well.
As your claim to fame. Look, school board members, we appreciate you. We know there's a proclamation, but we'd rather give the video and share a little bit from our staff about our thanks and gratitude to all of you. You have there a packet with some TPS bling, but we know you're always on the go. So we thought coffee this year, our coffee mug, a TPS coffee mug, along with a few other items that have TPS on it. So when you are on the go, you have some TPS items. With that recognition, we again want to thank you for all that you do. We're going to move on to our next highlight. And again, we congratulate Mr. Tatum, Board President and Vice President, Dr. Schumacher on this School Board Appreciation Month. Our Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, it is January 9th. Now, we also have SRO Day, Law Enforcement School Day. So when we have our school Law Enforcement Day, we invite all of our police officers and we celebrate them then. But Law Enforcement Appreciation is something just statewide that as that day comes and goes, we also want to acknowledge that we have many law enforcement officers in the city of Topeka and Topeka Public Schools that work together to keep us safe. That proclamation is listed there, but this evening we do have Chief here this evening. We have our Chief here this evening. Now you will see him on 2 more law enforcement days. Most importantly, the school law enforcement day is when all of his officers are here. But we thank you, Chief, and your staff for all that you do. Are there any questions for the Chief? Chief, you want to come up for just a moment, just in case they have a question? They're going to see you again in a couple of months. But any questions for Chief since he is here with us this evening?
Mr. Munoz.
Chief, would you remind us again how many law enforcement we have in our schools that are working to make sure keeping our buildings and our students and staff safe?
So at the middle schools, we have 7. That includes a sergeant as a supervisor. And then in our public schools here at 501, we have 14. That includes myself and Captain McCray.
I just wanted to, again, thank you. You know that we appreciate the work that you do, as well as everyone who's making sure that safety is our top priority. And not only are they in our high schools and middle schools, but I know from time to time when I go to pick up my kids, I'll see a patrol car there as well. So they are everywhere where they need to be, and we appreciate them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Boley.
So could you tell us what are their responsibilities in the building? I think it's more than just patrolling the ground. Am I correct?
Yes, basically they build relationships with students, faculty, and staff during the day. They're out there interacting with the kids, talking to them at breaks and lunches and things like that. And they're just being there for them. And it really works out well. It really helps us out a lot.
Thank you for that. We appreciate those relationship building. I know that even helps keep our schools safer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
I'd just like to thank all of you for all the support you give us. Dr. Anderson and Mr. Robbins for all the support they give us. We couldn't be successful without that support. So I'd just like to thank all of you.
And thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you.
All right, those are all of our highlights this evening. In front of you, you also have the senior salute. Next week is mid-year graduation. So for those of you that come to mid-year graduation, it's tiny but mighty. We just picked the 2 largest schools, and that's what's in front of you. If you like the other program, we can get it to you, but you're going to get all 3 of those next week. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, and I believe that does cover all the highlights, correct? All right, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. So next item on our agenda, public comments. Mrs. Lister, do we have no public comments? Okay. All right, so the next item on.
We have to go all the way down.
All the way down, that's right. Thanks for the reminder. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Dr. Kipp is coming up to talk about enrollment. It's a work session time. And during the work session time, for those that are listening in the public, this is the time where we first present a topic. We give you some information on that. So the strategic plan topic for today is finance. But the finance portion that we are presenting this evening has to do with enrollment, which is partially how we're funded. So Dr. Kipp will talk about that, give just a brief bit of information about how we're funded, and then give you the enrollment projections for next year. When you go into work session, we would ask that if you have questions for Dr. Kipp or would like to discuss the enrollment projections, that's a wonderful time to do that. Dr. Kipp?
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. I just had about a pint of the city's water, so I hope this goes okay. All right. So let's go to the next slide, Mr. Cowan. So what I wanted to do is kind of highlight how we do projections, how I do projections, and some of the critical historical trends that we're seeing. Now, don't get too caught up in the numbers here, but this is about 20 years worth of kindergarten enrollment. That's one of those critical pieces that, you know, with declining birth rates and migration in and out of Kansas, we're always kind of looking at our incoming kindergartners are the feeders for the rest of the K-12 model. So as you can see, over the past 20 years, we've kind of had a pretty steady decline in kindergarten enrollment. But what I do kind of am holding on to is that little lip towards the end there. I'm starting to see sort of a reversal and a plateauing of the kindergarten losses. And in fact, I'm projecting a little bump for kindergarten at 907 is what I'm shooting for. What year was the peak? I'm sorry? What year was Oh, the peak was in the school year 2012, 2013. A record number of 1,220 kindergartners. Okay, next slide, please. Another critical junction is sixth grade enrollment. You know, these breaks between fifth and sixth and where they matriculate up. This is kind of the pattern over the past, you know, again, another 20 years of kindergarten or sixth grade enrollment. As you can see, over the past maybe 5 years, we've had a pretty steady decline, which last year was one of our lowest numbers of sixth grade enrollment. And what's happening as we have enrollment declines, you know, it's sort of like a tsunami. It takes a few years to start hitting the secondary levels and start hitting middle school and high school. So I do project a slight bump from that 820 is the lowest from last year. And I do feel it's going to bump up to about 864. And I'll kind of wrap this up on why some of these theories I have in terms of some of the increases. This last slide is ninth grade. And this one takes a really interesting circuitous route. You know, so early on in the early 2000s, we kind of plateaued, started having a little spike in ninth grade enrollment. Just to preemptively answer, the peak was in the year 2016. We had a highest number of ninth grade enrollment at 1216. Since then, we've been on a pretty steady decline. Again, it's starting to plateau towards the end there, and I'm predicting a slight bump in ninth grade as well. So putting this all together, this is the total district enrollment over the last, I think, 8 or 9 years. The blue line is what actually our actual enrollment. The orange line is what I predicted. So as you can see, it's pretty close to what mathematically I'm coming up with. And in that very last column, I am seeing a plateau that's going to actually start bumping up a little bit. I think it's going to be about a 30 to 40 student increase. We're not talking drastic numbers. However, it's good to see some steady plateauing of the enrollment because, as Dr. Anson mentioned, our funding comes from student enrollment in a variety of fashions. There's one thing you need to understand, the difference between FTE and headcount. All of what I presented here is headcount. The state funds a full FTE for kindergarten through 12th if they're full-time students. Now, preschool is funded half-time unless they have an IEP, then they're funded full-time. So we start aligning weightings if they're in the ELL or what the state calls bilingual programs now. We get additional weightings for that. Transportation, we do get some reimbursement for busing kids around. Our at-risk dollars, and I think Mr. Minky could go ad nauseum on how this all correlates to finance, but the core thing is our student enrollment is what's driving and kind of dictating what our budget, where we allocate resources in that regard. I will include a very important caveat that's going to be coming up that's brand new that I've never experienced in 24 years of working here. Open borders. Our open borders will begin in this coming August. And we've had some discussions with that. Ms. Whiteman's kind of, I think, briefed you on some of the upcoming rules where we have to publicize what our transfer policies are. And I believe we're going to go into more detail with you as a board on what our specific plan is. We do have very detailed timelines for out-of-district enrollment and criteria for maintaining good standing while they're here. So this open enrollment could skew some of my projections. We could have a lot more kids coming in. Topeka High has always been a beacon for surrounding areas because of academic and diversity opportunities there. So overall, we're going to be bumping up just a little bit. And so it's definitely moving in a positive direction.
Thank you, Dr. Kipp. We do have another financial update as well, if we may proceed, and then we'll turn it over to the board for any discussion that you'd like to have over either of those. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
That's fine, Superintendent.
All right, Mr. Minke is here, and later you'll see in your agenda, you have a discussion about this topic. He's going to introduce it under finance, since we're talking about finance this evening. And it's regarding Blue Cross and Blue Shield and their conditional grant. And I believe, Mr. Minke, are you speaking to this one, the National Fitness Campaign? Okay, well, come on up, Mr. Minke. Unless someone else would like to speak to it. No, we'd love to.
So I tricked everybody.
Not me.
Not you. I told you I was going to talk about National Fitness Council. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about health insurance first. Because it's really correlated. And I don't know how much of the information you got a chance to read in the board items, but I verbatim can go over that, or we can have a discussion. But why I think I even brought this conditional, and it is a conditional grant award. This, if we decide this evening that this is something that we ought to do as a district. The letter of intent is non-binding, right? We still have 30 to 45 days to tell the National Fitness Council, look, we kind of got into this and we just don't think we could move forward. But it's a big idea. And I really think we need a big idea for wellness, promoting wellness among our staff, among our kids. I can tell you year in, year out, when I look at our vendor report, the top 5 vendors that we send money to every year, Blue Cross and Blue Shield tops that list. Last year, the top 4, Blue Cross Blue Shield, our CAPERS payments for our employees, state of Kansas, payroll taxes, and U.S. Food Service for our meals. The supplies for our meals, but Blue Cross Blue Shield last year about $16.8 million. So we're fully insured. What drives insurance? Everybody has property liability insurance at home. Has anybody had property liability insurance go down? Because if you have this last year, I want to talk to you because it's not going down and it's going to go up again. Because in the insurance world, claims drive premium. It's that simple. You have more claims than you have premium coming in. It's going to impact, if I'm running an insurance company, how I price your product, right? And there's really good people, I promise you, on our health insurance committee here at Topeka Public Schools, our wellness committee, people that work hard every month. Our deputy superintendent, I can't say enough about what he's done the last 5 years in keeping our health insurance costs under control. But again, know and understand that cost is driven by claims. So here's what I'm going to tell you. And if you don't leave here this evening with anything else, understand this. We have a problem, and our problem isn't unique. It's like many employers. Our claims consistently outpace our premiums. Month over month, year over year, our health insurance claims outpace our premiums, even that 16.8 million. In 2022, our claims outpaced premiums by about 105%. So for every dollar we put in health insurance premium, we got $1 and a nickel in healthcare services year over year. And if I can go back to 2019, I can go back 5 years, I can go back 4 years. It doesn't get better, right? Consistently 107%, 114%, 101%. But we don't get a year that's 89%, right? That'd be a great year for both us and our health insurance company. Standard calculations in the insurance industry say if your loss ratios, if your claims are larger than your premiums by 60 to 80%, probably next year you're going to get an increase in your renewal rates between 60 and 80%. Ours consistently run above 100%. So we need to get healthier, right? And I kind of put it out there. And the one thing that struck me about this is I think just the honesty of what was going on with the National Fitness Council, that growing rates of obesity and related diseases are killing millions of folks every year. And we probably in the US have a particular problem, right? 40% of us, and I'm including me in that us, you know, because I love my snack foods as well. But there's no magic, right? There isn't. You got to eat less, you got to eat better, you got to move more. That's the formula. And I've looked at this over and over, right? I mean, and we've done, and we will continue doing challenging things for our wellness committee. But until we can get 1,800 or 1,900 people moving in the direction of eating better, eating fewer calories, and moving more, I think it's going to be really hard to move the needle. I shared with you the food industry spent $6 billion, right, last year telling us we need to satisfy ourselves with more savory, more sugar, larger quantities, makes us feel better. And the pharmaceutical companies follow up with a commercial that says, I can fix whatever that guy's selling with this, right? But those aren't free, right? We all know we take medications every year, right? Those costs increase. So when I saw this back in October, they introduced this national fitness campaign concept, right? Was with this outdoor fitness court, and it promotes moving, but it's free, right? We're not asking you to join a gym membership and sign a 12-page contract, right? I mean, it's going to be out there. It's going to be free. But there's a cost, right? For whoever promotes this. They have worked historically with cities. They've worked with a lot of college campuses. If you go out, I mean, you see, but they really want to move this concept into K-12 or in our case, pre-K-12 education. So they've reached out to us. They really think Topeka Public Schools would be a great partner. They offer grants between $25,000 and $50,000. Topeka Public Schools, and this is in partnership with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, which again is a great partner of Topeka Public Schools, have given the district a conditional award of $50,000. But these fitness courts don't cost $50,000. They cost between $235,000 and $270,000, right? The other thing is, it's not just their concept isn't build the court and they'll come, right? You have to agree to have fitness ambassadors. You got to agree to have people trained in 7 movements, 7 minutes. But you got to host regularly and promote, right, among our students, among our staff that, hey, I know it's hard for me, but you got to eat less, you got to eat better, and you got to move more. And so meet us at the fitness court for 14 minutes. You know, you don't have to do 49 minutes. Do 7 minutes. Do 14 minutes. That is the idea. This doesn't work if you build it. It's not Field of Dreams, right? Magic people aren't going to come out and make us better. But we need a big idea. And I think this gives our wellness team, our health insurance committee, something big to build around, but it has a cost. So maybe there's a better idea out there. I don't know. I think this is a pretty good idea, but we need to do something. And that is my real point here is we've got some difficult headwinds maintaining our health insurance costs for premium costs for our employees. And we can't do it unless, and again, I'm including, so nobody send me a Facebook or an email. I'm including myself in this, right? I have got to do some things better. I got to be healthier. That's it. That's it in a nutshell.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Mickey. So board, we've had two presentations, one from Dr. Kipp on student enrollment and the other from Mr. Minky on the fitness facility. I'm going to open up now for questions for either of you gentlemen. So asking you both to stand by. Do we have any questions from the board for Dr. Bonebrake?
Thank you, Mr. President. Don't we have to officially approve the recommendation to go ahead with that $50,000 grant?
Later in the agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. The board would have to accept the grant to move forward. And that is by the letter of intent. We'd have to sign the letter of intent and return it to the National Fitness Council. But you're correct. We would have to make that.
And
motion.
that's under action item as the next item after your discussion and your work session.
If the board chooses to move that way, yeah.
Okay, a 30 by 30 workout area seems like it shouldn't cost $250,000, but it's
I
what it
agree.
is.
I don't think new pickup trucks ought to cost $60,000.
No.
And I don't think a gallon of milk ought to be $3. And I don't think, and again, don't people at Rebelsis, because I mean, my family does this. I don't think that Rebelsis should cost $1,000 a month. I don't, but it does. Yeah.
Mrs. Boley.
And is there a way, does the district have a way of paying for this? We're only getting $50,000 and you
Right.
said 230,000. So do we have area of finance that we're able to use for something like this in our health area?
That's a great question. I was hoping one of you would drag that out of me. So again, part of my rejection of this idea in October, two or three times was, right, that is a commitment on the district's part, but I got to digging into this. If we were to commit to something like this, the reason I think this probably is a great time is because of our ESSER and COVID dollars, our federal dollars, our grant dollars over the last 2 or 3 years, our indirect cost that we've been able to capture from, rightfully so, for managing those grants has put a few more dollars in that indirect fund. And I think the indirect fund could help fund this. And I think it's in line with the COVID dollar response into, some of that was for outdoor classrooms, right? We need to move some learning outdoors. We need, right, to improve some health. So I think that is in line with using those indirect dollars. And with those funds, I can tell you we have benefited from increased interest rates, just like everybody else. And I've shared that with the finance committee. 3 years ago, the dollars in our monthly MIP accounts were earning, right, less than 2 basis points, which is below two dots to the right of a percent. And now, right, the dollars we have in the bank are earning about 4.5%. But that's not going to last forever either. So I wouldn't use any budgeted state aid money or ad valorem tax dollars to fund this. That's what I would do. The other part of this, and it's the next step. There's 7 steps to completing one of these. The second step is also reaching out and trying to find some other community partners that would think this was a good idea and help us fund it. And they provide right templates and suggested letters and folks who to address for this, right? Folks who also think it's right. Part of their mission is to move folks away from driving everywhere and becoming a little more pedestrian. Again, move more, eat less, eat better.
Thank you. I had a question for Dr. Kipp. Thank you, Mr. Minke. Dr. Kipp, I am assuming we are putting some things in place. I heard you say you talked with Mrs. Whiteman about open borders.
Yes.
So could you give me some ideas of what we're looking at right now in our district to prepare for open borders? And also a question for Dr. Anderson, are we doing any type of advertising to draw?
Yeah, I'll take the first part. The one thing that the statute highlights very clearly is that we can accept anyone as long as we have the capacity to accept them. Now, on the front end, we establish what those capacity levels are. We've been doing that for years at elementary. There's certain ratios at K1, there's certain ratios at 2 through 5. The big challenge this year was determining what is the capacity of Topeka High. What is the capacity of Jardine Middle School? And so we've had several meetings with principal leads, Mr. Dick, to try to determine, what is an appropriate class size for, a biology class or an algebra class. There's going to be fluctuations in some of those classes like ecology and some of these electives. But we've kind of come to an understanding. I don't think we're at the point to release that. I think we have till May to post that per the statute on our website, what those capacities are and how many slots we think we'll have available. So we have till May to determine that. We have established some rules on how we define being in good standing. I believe they revolve around the number of discipline referrals and a certain level of attendance rate. And again, those will be made public very soon. So we can certainly take these people if there's capacity. I don't know to a certain degree how much we've advertised or are planning to do that. I'll let Dr. Anderson speak to that.
And we are fortunate with our communications team. Normally, we advertise at a particular period of time, one for college prep, for T-Calc, for the district overall. So that's something we normally do. The change here would be adding in space availability. So the way the advertisement looks will be different. So we advertise everything from billboards. We tried something new this year and advertised in the movie theaters over the winter break. And so as we have spring break coming up, that was for teacher recruitment, which we found to be quite successful in the new teachers that we most recently hired second semester, thanks to the great ideas from human resources. So we'll be using those platforms and continuing to do that. The other item in terms of advertisement overall, we have not in the past mailed using a postal mail service our newsletters. It's been online. But we do know our neighboring district does send newsletters to our district because it perhaps overlaps or borders. And so some of our residents have brought in the neighboring district's newsletters that they receive. So we certainly will be advertising as well broadly given the open borders, and reestablishing the newsletter. We did have one paper in 2016, but we still didn't use the postal service. So that will be a new addition in addition to the normal venues that we normally use.
Thank you. Those are all good contingency plans. It's good to hear what our leadership is putting in place and thinking around. Thank you.
You bet. Anyone else? Dr. Schumacher?
I also have a question for Dr. Kip and Mr. Minke. So Dr. Kip can go first.
All right.
You had mentioned kind of theories, because I do feel like you have your finger on the pulse of enrollment, probably better than most, as to what maybe draws students to 501. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I do have the luxury of, when they have to fill out a transfer application, and they do describe qualitatively why they want to come here, why this particular school. And so we've done some qualitative analysis, and the themes do revolve around, I think diversity is a wonderful strength for our district. To be frank, I've heard, there's some homogeneity in certain districts, and parents want their children exposed to what they're going to see in the real world. In the workforce, you're going to have to work with diverse types of individuals that, maybe not in your community. So diversity would be one. Course offerings is another big draw. Some of the more advanced AP courses that we offer. We actually, when we had universal free lunch, we did have an influx, that saves parents, particularly if you have 4 or 5 kids. Thanks to Mr. Robbins and his team, having that opportunity for kind of a respite in those fees. I don't know if that's sustainable, if we're going to continue with that, but there's just a variety of reasons. There are some elements of not necessarily racism, but I've seen comments from parents of sort of that divisiveness in some areas of our community. And they feel that some of our schools actually have, clubs that are more willing, for an accepting of certain lifestyles that they can't find in their home district. A lot of parents work here in Topeka, so it makes natural sense. I can drop my kids off downtown. They're right there at Topeka High. I use Topeka High as an example because that's the huge draw. But we do have a lot of schools on the periphery, like Chase. There's a lot of kids from Seaman that want to come to Chase. It's a variety of reasons, but we always try to check to see if they're running from something, or that perception that the grass is greener on the other side. We do look at discipline referrals and grades, to evaluate. We won't have that luxury next year. We have to take them. But we do try to filter out and have interviews with some of these parents particularly that are school shopping. I might deny somebody to go to Topeka High. Well, what about Topeka West? So they're kind of school shopping. I think that's a story of the ages. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think you, it might have been last year, kind of touched on, I think, things that we all feel like make Topeka Public Schools great. And I think we do a good job of voicing that. But I do think that continues to be important, especially with open borders. And I think on me as a school board member, it's making sure that our schools continue to be inclusive and welcoming, because that may be the refuge that certain students need. So I appreciate you putting.
And I certainly hope I'm wrong with all my projections and there's a huge influx. I'd be more than happy with that.
Yeah.
So
now Mr. Minke's turn. I think I appreciate you bringing this, because I would agree that, that big swings are probably, worth it at this point. And it seems like there's, appropriate funding and that kind of stuff. I'm thinking of, if approved, and you kind of touched on next steps of trying to find partners and that kind of stuff. But I think some of us might go to like, okay, where does this go? And I suspect that's all will be figured out with time, because I think something that if you're trying to help the community that this is in, where this goes becomes a very important question. And I hope that part of the process would be bringing the community together and trying to figure out the best way. And I would suspect we wouldn't want to decide that tonight, but
And that isn't something, and a great question, and part of the application process and the way this kind of moved forward was, I watched the 3-minute video, and I really want you guys to see the 3-minute video because it is pretty impactful. But it's not streaming, and I think it's a problem on their end right now. But part of the application process again was, hey, throw your district's name in the ring, again, non-binding, but put out 5 locations that you think on your application would be great locations. The deputy superintendent and I talked, because it is, if you look at what I put in the board item and what's in their literature, again, it's about getting people outdoors, making people pedestrians. And they really like these things next to trails, community trails, which guess what? In Topeka, we have the Shunga Trail that runs end to end, which is great, right? Anybody that's worked in this building knows that we have lots of fitness folks here. The minute the sun's out, we got people running up and down our steps, running up and down our hills. When it's snowing, they're going the other direction. This site, Hummer, Bishop, because we have a lot of staff at Bishop, we have a great facility there. We have beautiful flat spaces. We have a lot of parking. Topeka High, Randolph has some great front property centrally. But yeah, that's part of the process, is having that conversation with the folks, right, that we would appoint to, hey, let's get this fitness court kicked off in conjunction with the National Fitness Campaign, because the days we were talking about these locations, it's pretty easy for them to look at Google, and just about every one of those locations, you're 5 minutes from the Shunga Trail. So that really fits their model of get people outdoors, get them moving for 7 minutes, 14 minutes, 21 minutes, and then take a 20-minute walk on the Shunga Trail. Does that answer your question?
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Mr. Mankey, I have a question. I'm just thinking about the logistics. It sounds really important. And so talking about these different places where these programs would be, would there need to be any staffing, like, and follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. Or it doesn't work. But I think we need folks willing to staff, willing to host and volunteer for some of these activities, just to get their own team members, right? Hey, Jesse, let's go do 3 of the 7-minute exercises today. I think we have to have a fair amount of that as well. And go.
Yeah, those exercises, there's QR codes. You
Right.
can put your phone up to it and you'll have an instructor lead you through the exercise at that station.
Really?
And
Yeah.
there's, what, 7 stations?
7 stations, they're all 7 minutes,
Yeah.
the designed for different things. And you could do them at your level, right? I'm not going to do lunges on the thing that's this tall, right? Gary Minke's going to do the one that's his phone. One, and I'm doing them right now, actually. I'm burning.
So I could go there at like 6 p.m.
You could go at 6 p.m. and I'm not going to ask you to sign a contract, right? That's so it's designed to be free. It's designed to be equitable, right? You don't have to be a certain height. You don't have to have a degree in physiology. You could be a chubby school administrator and participate.
Mhm.
You have to take your cell phone.
but you have to take your cell phone.
And
The-
then somebody would be on the phone, like.
Yeah, and honestly,
It's a video.
to point out just the fitness court, the more expensive addition to that to make the 235,000 is kind of just the flat concrete surface on the other side. Because I do think we have to have folks saying, hey, I'm interested in yoga, or our PE instructors, right? I think folks interested in saying, hey, I do Tai Chi twice a week, come out and I'll do a 20-minute session. Because we have to have those low impact things. I remember there was a time here when we had some employees that did Zumba in this room, and it would be full of people.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. But I do think if people have the opportunity, they participate. We just, it can't be $39 a month, and it's got to be open when you're open to. I think you made a great point. Can I go at 6 o'clock? Right? We can't build it and put a 8-foot fence around it and say, hey, we're keeping everybody out so it'll stay pretty and shiny. And that's not the point. The point is to get people out there. Move more. That's the idea.
And last question for Mr. Mankey. Where does the funding come from the NFC?
Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, they've partnered in that block of literature. You'll see all of the health insurance. They really have partnered with a lot of health insurance companies to move these grants forward. So yeah, I mean, the National Fitness Council, when you look at the grant, Blue Cross Blue Shield on their website, right? It is the National Fitness Campaign, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas. That is where our funding would come from, our BCS partners here down the street.
Thank you, Mr. Minky.
I had another question for Mr. Minky, just real quickly. We are considering $50,000 grant at the moment. Is that correct? Okay.
That's it.
Okay, right. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying, Dr. Bonebreak. So you said yourself, $50,000 isn't going to cover the total cost. If we are not successful, let's just for the sake of argument, let's say we don't find any other collaborative partners in the community to go in with us on funding for this initial training court, exercise court. Minus the $50,000, how much does that leave the district on the hook for?
Yeah, and I think
ballpark.
I think, and I included that, I think anywhere between matching funds for the district would be 185 to 220,000. 185 if we just did the fitness court, 220 if we did the other just flat slab on the other side for those low impact yoga, Zumba type events. Right. Again, I would look to those indirect funds currently to help fund this to our portion.
Okay. Mr. Munoz.
You know, my service on the Finance Council has always told me that there's so many things that are out of our control, like, fuel pricing, and some things that are under control, or at least we have some amount of control, and working and trying to make sure that our communities that we serve and interact with are as healthy as possible. There's potential there. As far as the cost, that cost that you estimate is just the initial sort of investment, right? That in the year 2, year 3, and year 4 is significantly lower. I just want to make sure I understand.
I don't know that there's much maintenance cost at all to this, honestly. I mean, everything's powder coated or stainless steel, so I don't think there's a $5,000 maintenance cost. You know what? Look, are we going to have to go out there and pressure wash? I love Judy off the side of it once in a while. I mean, not that I'm going to do that. I do love Judy, but I'm not going to go spray paint her name on the side of it. But look, we're in the school business, right? That happens. We do that kind of thing. Mr. sites and his team have to do it. But in terms of a maintenance cost, right, we don't have to change the oil or put a roof on it or fix the pipes. There's just none of that.
Yeah, and so what I was getting at is that in order for these sort of efforts to be successful, it has to be multi-year. We can't sort of do it for 1 or 2 years. We have to sort of work at trying to change habits and behaviors. That takes time, and
That is, it is absolutely, it only works if we can get people out and doing things.
and with as much as
And I don't have any vision that we're going to get 1,900 people out there in year one, but man, if we got 90 and the next year we got 190, yes, ma'am.
You bring up a really good point. Will there be any way to track the use of that by people?
The only way I could see doing that is if we had, right, fitness council, folks that volunteer to do fitness council, maybe take a head count and submit that to us. But no, I mean, there's really no way or hey, send us an email when you go out and do your 7 minutes.
I didn't know if the people hitting the QR codes, if we'd be able
You know
to
what, I
track
could ask
that.
that question. That right, there's technology there. Maybe they can count those.
Just like you can have
QR
web
codes.
counters, now they're not
yeah.
foolproof. I mean, obviously somebody can go back to one site over and over and over again, but it might at least give us an idea if it's something we care about.
Yeah, as Mr. Minky has shared all of this, which that gives a great opportunity for technology and communications to collaborate about a QR code, even just for our own district to track health and wellness, photos, all of those pieces. It really opens the gamut. The professional development office has an opportunity to collaborate, as do our fitness staff. So those are all new things that can be born out of this with the questions and suggestions that you've just mentioned. As a reminder, Mr. Robbins, I don't know, as Mr. Mickey concludes the indirect cost, did you want to remind, although Mr. Mickey has already shared that that doesn't come from budgeted dollars in other areas, but indirect costs, just for the people that are listening that might not know what indirect costs are, just very briefly mentioning what that is, so we know that's not coming from other budgeted dollars.
Yes, Dr. Anderson, as Mr. Minky mentioned, the indirect costs are costs that we capture for the costs associated with administering a grant. We are able to capture costs associated with doing that. So the costs that would be used to fund this fitness center would not come from the general fund. It would not come from capital outlay. And I think, as Mr. Minky mentioned, all of those are dollars that come from taxpayers. That would not be the case in this instance. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments from the board? For either of our speakers?
So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mickey and
Mr.
Dr.
Chair.
Chip.
That does conclude our work session, our superintendent's report and work session item. And if the board would, if it would please the board in the future, as you determine your board goals and you share with me what you'd like for those work sessions to be, then we will present on that topic and then leave it for you to have the discussion. So we can do the deep dive like we did today in a strategic plan area such as finance.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to you, sir, for the action item related items.
Okay. Number 21, action items. Looks like the first action item is the decision in the student discipline hearing. Do I have a motion on that topic?
Yeah, I move the Board of Education modify the student discipline for the student discussed in executive session to allow the student to return to school on March 19th.
Do I have a second for that motion? Mrs. Schmidt, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will move to vote on the matter. All right. Thank you. Next item. The next item technically is the possible action on what we just heard. My understanding, we're not going to take any action on that. We're going to take another session in order to make a decision on that. Is that correct?
Well, and if I could ask, Mr. Chair, I believe Mr. Minky is asking that if you've heard enough and are prepared to take an action, if there could be a move to approve. Am I correct, Mr. Minky, that you're asking for action this evening if you're prepared to do that? We put possible, so if
Sure.
you'd like for it to wait and have more discussion. But if you are prepared to act to approve the conditional grant, I believe Mr. Minky's asking for that. Am I correct, sir?
At the board's pleasure, yes. If they feel that
Anyone want to weigh in on that? I'd like to hear if you got some thoughts or comments, Dr. Schumacher.
I think Miss Boley does. I'll allow her.
Okay. Mrs. Boley.
I believe we have some type of a timeline that we need to follow. And so the reason why he would be presenting tonight, because we have to at least hit that first timeline of accepting the grant. Am I correct, Dr. Minky? I mean, Mr. Minky, Dr. Soon.
Doctor Never. So, yeah, the conditional grant award, again, based on the seven steps, have timelines. Our first timeline is January, tomorrow's the 19th, right?
Accept the grant.
Is to do in conditional acceptance of the grant. That intent letter, right, I highlighted it's non-binding. But again, I don't want to feel like this is not a strong arm either, because I think they really, really want Topeka Public Schools as a partner. I'll just be honest with you, in the conversations I've had with the National Fitness Council representatives, based on what they've seen on our website and the conversations we've had. And I'm telling you, these are people that have partnered with the University of Nebraska, the University of Colorado, Stanford, and they're excited about Topeka Public Schools. So whatever you folks are doing must be doing something right, because they're excited about having us as a partner.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mrs. Boley. I'd forgotten about the timeline. Anyone else have a comment? I thought a few hands.
I was wondering, is the timeline attached to our agenda?
I do believe I included it.
I think it's in the
My documents
discussion.
just aren't coming up, so that's why I was asking.
Miss Boley, it might be in 22.1. I don't know if you're in 21.2.
So if it pleases the board to accept the
yeah.
conditional grant, if someone motions and seconds that, then we would be able to approve accepting the conditional grant.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah. I move to accept the conditions and approve the grant award.
Is there a second? Mrs. Schmidt seconds. Okay. If the clerk would please open the voter roll.
All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. There you go, Mr. Mickey. All right, so the next item on our agenda then, open comments by board members. Does anybody want to comment? Given the fact that we're going back into an executive session to come back into open session to do the consent, we don't have to belabor this. If you've got something that you would like to share with the rest of the board, I think that's fine. If not, that's fine too. Mrs. Bawley?
I just attended the Sheldon Policy Committee, and the Head Start National people are going to come and observe our program from February 12th through the 16th. And so they will be in our buildings looking at our program, and wanted the board to know that they will be here, and that Mrs. Stewart Campbell and myself are invited to one of the areas where they need board membership to be involved in that discussion. So just wanted you to know that they're coming and looking at our program to approve us to move forward.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Boley. Dr. Bonebreak?
Mr. Chairman, two things. Well, first of all, Mr. Menke really discussed all the committees that we attended beforehand, but primarily 2 years ago, I constructed this letter to go to our representatives and senators, and nothing's changed. So I wondered if you could consider my template and could send to the representative. We need to get the addresses and names of our representatives so that we could, if you wish this, just take one and pass it on. If you're interested, they're the same, except that one has places for signatures. Just send that to the representatives or senators. If you want to add something, add something. That's just, we've got another crazy legislative session coming up. And you know, I think the fitness thing, if we can get moving, that would help, but we're all getting older and tend to be getting bigger, as Mr. Menke said. Let's get more active. And that's all I have.
Anyone else?
I just want to thank the individuals who put together our board appreciation gifts. This was really nice, really special. And somebody loves me. So Miss Melanie Stewart Campbell, thank you. I love you. So some kid out there loves me. And that's all I have to say.
Do we have any other board members that wish to make comments, closing comments? I'd like to say to my fellow board members, again, thank you for the opportunity to be your servant in this capacity. That's exactly what this role entails. Thank you to Mrs. Boley for having led the board for a year prior to this point that we're in now. I'm going to definitely look to her for some guidance, as well as Mr. Munoz, who's also been in the role of the board president previously. I know that there are several of you that are interested likely in making some changes to committee assignments. There may be others of you that just want to keep things exactly the same. I'm certainly willing to have that conversation at this point in time. I have no plans to drag anyone kicking and screaming away from a committee that they really, really enjoy. So for the most part, we'll do things as they make sense and keep as much the same as we can. So, okay, that's all I have. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to, oh, you're ready. Dr. Schumacher's getting ready for the motion. I thought you had a comment. So Dr. Schumacher, please make the motion for executive session.
Can I clarify how much time we think we'll need for executive session?
That's a good point. I'm thinking 30 minutes. Does that sound, or do we feel like we need the full 45?
15.
You're thinking, okay, Ms. Boley thinks we need 45.
You want to go into 30, give it the hour?
Yeah,
We
I would
certainly
say
could do
let's
that.
start
We
with
certainly
30.
Start with 30. Okay. Okay, good.
Okay, I move the USD 501 Board of Education recess into executive session for 30 minutes to discuss confidential employee matters to protect the privacy of the individual employees to be discussed pursuant to the personnel exception of the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The board will return to open session in the boardroom at 8:36 p.m. The superintendent and executive staff are invited into executive session.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Stewart Campbell? Okay, we will move to a vote.
Board of Education has extended the executive session for 15 minutes.
on our agenda. And the next item on our agenda is the consent.
I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
Do I have a second? Dr. Bonebrake seconds. Any further discussion on the item? Okay, let's move to a vote.
Okay, all votes are in. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lister. Am I missing anything? Is everything on the agenda?
We are adjourned.
I move the meeting adjourned.
Do we have a second?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, meeting adjourned.